The ER doors exploded open, wheels screeching against tile. "He's not breathing," someone shouted. A Marine lieutenant, ribbon still pinned to his torn uniform, lay motionless beneath the harsh white lights. Doctors shouted orders, monitors screamed, and then came the words, "No soldier's body should ever hear. Time of death." But at the edge of the chaos, one nurse didn't move. Elena Ward, calm, still watching. She stepped forward, her voice low but certain. "Not yet." Before anyone could stop her, she performed a maneuver no civilian hospital had ever seen. Something born on a battlefield, not in a classroom. Gasps filled the room as the flatline flickered. Then a heartbeat returned. The chief surgeon froze. "What did you just do?" Elena lifted her eyes. Steady. Haunted. Something I promised I'd never use again. If you believe heroes never truly stop serving, hit subscribe because what she did next would uncover a secret the Navy buried 12 years ago. The ER at St. Helena Trauma Center was already running on fumes when the call came through. Rain battered the windows, thunder rolled like cannon fire outside, and the smell of antiseptic and burnt coffee filled the air. But when the voice crackled over the radio, tense, clipped, urgent, everyone froze. Critical inbound. Male 38. Multiple gunshot wounds. Unresponsive. No pulse for 2 minutes. Possible Marine unit insignia on uniform. Nurse Aaron Wallace was already moving before the transmission finished. Her gloved hands snapped tight, her voice cutting through the noise. Trauma 1. Clear the airway cart. Get me a thoracostomy set and pressure infuser. Now the charge nurse blinked at her. "Aaron, you think we'll need yes," she said flatly. "And bring the crash cart. He's not done fighting yet." The automatic door slammed open a minute later. Rain and chaos poured in with the paramedics. On the gurney lay a Marine lieutenant, uniform shredded, chest soaked dark, eyes half-op, but unseeing. His ID tags clinked against the rails as they wheeled him through. Lost pulse in transit. One of the EMTs barked. "We tried compressions. No rhythm." "Push 2 of epi," shouted Dr. Hartman, the attending surgeon, rushing in behind her. "Get ready to call it." Aaron's head snapped toward him. "Call it." Hartman didn't even look up. "No vitals for 4 minutes. We've done what we can." She stared at the monitor, flat, unwavering. The room seemed to shrink around her. Then quietly, she said, "Not yet." Hartman frowned. "Nurse, stand down." "That's an order." But Aaron didn't move. Her eyes had gone distant, focused somewhere far beyond that sterile room. She saw not the hospital, not the doctors, but the memory of a tent under desert stars where the air smelled of cordite and diesel, and the cries of wounded men never stopped. In another life, another war, she'd stood over soldiers whose hearts had stopped. And she'd brought them back, not with hope, but with hard, brutal skill born of desperation. The kind that never made it into textbooks. Her voice was low, controlled. "I've seen this before. You're missing the secondary collapse. The internal cavities locking his rhythm." Hartman's expression hardened. "You're a nurse, not a trauma surgeon." Aaron stepped forward anyway. "You want to watch him fade? Fine, but I'm not letting another Marine die on my shift." The team hesitated, torn between hierarchy and instinct. Her tone didn't ask for permission. It gave direction. She leaned over the gurney, eyes locked on the lieutenant's pale face. "Hang in there, soldier," she whispered, her hands already moving. "Somebody get me 10 cubic centimeters of atropine," she said sharply. "Prep the left thoracic cavity." Hartman started to protest, but the paramedic beside him muttered, "Sir, look at her hands." Everyone did. Aaron's movements were surgical, clean, exact, practiced, the kind you didn't learn in civilian hospitals. Her voice dropped lower as she pressed her fingers against the rib line, searching for the hidden point. "This isn't cardiac. It's pressure lock from ormothorax. He's suffocating inside." Hartman hesitated, then snapped. "Fine, do it. You're responsible for the outcome." She already was. Aaron made a small incision. Guided by instinct more than vision, the room held its breath. Seconds dragged, then a hiss. A long, desperate rush of air escaped the chest cavity like a sigh from the edge of life itself. The monitor flickered once, then again. Beep. A faint rhythm crawled across the screen. Beep. Beep. Hartman froze. That's impossible. Erin's tone was quiet, almost reverent. No, doctor. It's experience. For a few seconds, no one moved. Then chaos reignited. Orders flew. Fluids ran. Vitals rose by the smallest of margins. The Marine was alive. Barely, but alive. Hartman turned toward her, voice shaking between awe and disbelief. Where in God's name did you learn that procedure? She peeled off her gloves, eyes distant again. A place that doesn't exist on any map. He blinked. What does that even mean? Before she could answer, the intercom blared. Incoming medevac 2 minutes out. Same convoy, multiple criticals. Erin's head jerked up. Get him to ICU. I'll take the next intake. Hartman stared at her. You should be off shift. You just pulled a miracle. Her lips pressed thin. I'm not done yet. Outside, thunder rolled again. 2 minutes later, she was back at the entrance as another gurney came flying in. This time carrying a Marine corpsman with shrapnel embedded along his side. Blood seeped through the gauze. His breathing was shallow. Aaron leaned over him. Stay with me, Corporal. His eyes fluttered open just long enough to see her face. You were there, he rasped. Kandahar, Navy 6, the doc who never missed a cut. Her heart clenched. Hartman, standing nearby, froze. What did he just say? But the Marine was already out cold. Aaron straightened slowly, her expression unreadable. He's delirious, she said flatly. Get him 202. Hartman's gaze lingered on her. He called you document. She met his eyes for the first time. I told you, Doctor, I've done this before. He stepped closer, voice quieter now. Who are you really, Nurse Wallace? But before she could respond, the first Marine's monitor upstairs began to alarm again. Irregular. Unstable. ICU's paging you? Shouted a resident. Your patient's crashing. Aaron didn't hesitate. Keep him alive, she ordered the trauma team. I'm going up. As she sprinted down the hall, her mind replayed the voice of her old commanding officer. The last words she'd heard before leaving Afghanistan. You save who you can, Aaron, but don't let the ghosts follow you home. They had followed her anyway. When she burst into the ICU, the Marine's monitor was in chaos. Nurses hovered helplessly. Hartman was seconds behind her, panting. He's going into full arrest, he shouted. We are losing him again. Aaron didn't wait for an order. She moved straight to the bedside, grabbing the syringe from the crash cart. Not today, she muttered. Her fingers were steady. Perfectly steady as she injected, repositioned, and started compressions again, counting under her breath like prayer. The second stretched, the line on the monitor held still, then a faint flicker. One beat, then another. The room exhaled in disbelief. Hartman stared, his voice barely a whisper. That's twice now. You've brought him back twice. Aaron leaned back, sweat glistening on her forehead, eyes clouded with emotion she'd long since buried. Sometimes, she said softly, you just need to know where to look for a heartbeat. He looked at her like he was seeing her for the first time. You weren't just Navy medical, were you? Her answer came quietly, almost swallowed by the hum of the machines. No, she said. I was Navy SEAL Team 6. And before he could speak, the monitor spiked again, a new rhythm, stronger, louder. She turned toward the sound, her expression unreadable. Yet the surgical suite prepped, she said, her voice calm as ever. This fight's not over yet. Outside, the storm raged harder against the glass, lightning flashing through the window like camera shutters, catching the look on Aaron Wallace's face, the look of a soldier who had stopped running. From what she was. If you believe heroes can rise again when the world has already given up, comment, never give up. The ICU hummed with low light and quiet dread. Machines blinked in steady rhythm, but no one in the room relaxed. The Marine lieutenant, the man who died twice and lived twice, lay pale under sterile sheets. His skin carried the grey hue of exhaustion and shock, the kind that didn't come from wounds alone. Dr. Hartman stood at the foot of the bed, arms folded, eyes locked on the monitors. The numbers held steady, but his focus wasn't on them. It was on her. Nurse Aaron Wallace stood opposite him, methodically checking vitals, her gloved fingers moving with precision that felt unnatural, not robotic, practiced, trained, refined by something more than hospital routine. Finally, He broke the silence. Who are you really, Wallace? She didn't look up. I'm the nurse who just kept your patient breathing. That's not what I asked. His voice dropped. You performed 2 emergency procedures without authorization, both outside your certification, and you did them flawlessly. That's not luck. Aaron straightened slowly, her expression calm, but unreadable. I don't believe in luck, Doctor. Just timing. Hartman's jaw tightened. You're going to have to do better than that. Before she could answer, the door swung open. Dr. Singh, the chief of medicine, entered with a clipboard in one hand and the weight of authority in the other. His eyes moved from the Marine to Aaron. You too, my office now. The words carried no room for negotiation. Singh office was a glass box overlooking the ICU. From here, you could see the storm clouds thinning outside, dawn beginning to push against the night. But inside, tension hung heavier than the humidity in the air. Hartman paced near the desk while Aaron stood still, her hands clasped behind her back, her posture too straight for a civilian nurse. Singh set his clipboard down and spoke first. 3 hours ago, a Marine lieutenant arrived clinically dead twice. He's alive because of you, Nurse Wallace. But you also violated multiple surgical protocols. I did what needed to be done. Hartman shot her a look. You inserted a chest tube blind, then revived him with an off-label dosage. If you'd been wrong, I wasn't wrong. The firmness in her tone made him stop mid-sentence. Singh exhaled, leaning back in his chair. We are not here to debate skill. We are here to understand it. Where did you learn to do what you did tonight? Aaron hesitated, her gaze flicking to the window. The rain had stopped, but the world outside still looked grey. Overseas, she said finally. Which base? Her silence was the only answer. Hartman's frustration broke. You're not just some field nurse. I've worked with Navy Medical. I've seen their training. But what you did, he stopped, studying her. You weren't just Navy. You were Special Operations Medical. The air in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Aaron's jaw tightened. That's classified. Singh blinked. Classified? You realize how that sounds in a hospital setting? I realize how it saved your patient. Hartman stepped forward. I looked up your file. You transferred here from a private care facility in Virginia. Before that, nothing. Just a gap. 5 years missing from your record. No references, no history. You don't vanish for 5 years unless you're hiding something. Aaron finally turned to face him fully. Her voice was calm, but there was an edge beneath it. I'm not hiding, Doctor. I'm surviving. Before Singh could respond, an alarm blared outside. Not the shrill of machines, but the deep-boned shaking wail of a hospital emergency alert. Mass casualty inbound. Came the announcement over the intercom. Multiple gunshot victims. ETA 5 minutes. Singh was already moving. We'll finish this later. But Aaron didn't wait for direction. She was halfway down the hall before anyone could follow. The ER erupted again. Paramedics pushed through double doors with stretchers in tow. Civilians, security guards, even a firefighter. Victims of a downtown shooting. Blood, panic, and adrenaline filled the air. 3 criticals, 2 stable, a medic shouted. We've got penetrating trauma to the abdomen on the first one. Hartman took the lead. Trauma 1 open and ready. Wallace with me. She didn't argue. The moment her hands touched the patient, her focus narrowed. Noise faded. Motion slowed. Every breath, every movement became part of a rhythm she hadn't felt in years. The battlefield rhythm. Entry wound, lower right quadrant, she said, eye scanning, voice clipped. Pressure's low, bleeds internal. Hartman nodded, moving for instruments. We'll have to open him up. Not yet, he frowned. Excuse me. Aaron pointed to the ultrasound. You open him now. He bleeds out before you can isolate the source. We need to clamp the inferior branch first. He hesitated. You can't be sure. I am sure. Hartman stared at her, then at the patient, then at the readings. Against his better judgment, he followed her lead. Within seconds, the bleeding slowed. How did you? She didn't let him finish. He's stable enough for surgery now. Move. As the gurney rolled out, Hartman caught her wrist. Not hard, but firm. His eyes locked on the faint mark just visible beneath her sleeve. A symbol. Winged dagger. Navy. Classified unit. He let go. I know what that is. Her expression didn't change. Then you know why you should forget you saw it. He didn't answer, but she could see the gears turning behind his eyes. Hours passed before the ER quieted again. The survivors were in recovery. The dead had been wheeled to the morgue. Only the hum of fluorescent lights and the hiss of oxygen tanks remained. Aaron sat alone in the break room, elbows on the table, coffee cooling untouched in her hands. For the first time that night, she looked tired. Not from work, from memory. Her mind went back to the Gulf. The heat, the sand, the sound of rotors chopping through smoke. She remembered kneeling beside a fallen SEAL, her glove slick, her voice cracking as she shouted for extraction that never came. She remembered finishing the surgery alone under gunfire because there was no one else. That was the day they called her the ghost surgeon. The day she stopped being human and became a story whispered across bases. The medic who never lost a man but lost herself. A knock pulled her back. Hartman stood at the doorway, his expression unreadable. You still haven't told me the truth, he said quietly. She didn't turn. You wouldn't believe it. Try me. Aaron looked up. You ever wonder why the SEALs never talk about their medics? He frowned. Because everything they do is classified. She nodded slowly. That's one reason. The other is that most of them don't make it home. Hartman's throat worked, but no sound came. I wasn't supposed to either, she said, but someone had to keep the stories alive. For a long moment, silence filled the space between them. Then the intercom buzzed again, the calm, steady tone that followed every major trauma alert. Critical update, came the voice from upstairs. Lieutenant Sanders is regaining consciousness. Aaron froze. The Marine Hartman met her eyes. Looks like he wants to meet the nurse who brought him back from the edge. She sat down her coffee. Then I'd better go remind him what edge that was. The hallway lights flickered as she walked toward the ICU, the storm outside breaking again. In the bed ahead, the Marine's eyes flooded open, confusion meeting the first face he saw. And when he whispered her name, it wasn't Nurse Wallace. It was her old call sign, the one she hadn't heard since the day she vanished. Ghost, he rasped. They said you were gone. Her hand froze midair, the color drained from her face. Rest now, Lieutenant, she said softly, but her pulse was pounding because if he remembered her, others might, too. And that meant the past she'd buried wasn't buried anymore. The ICU monitors hummed softly, their rhythmic beeps marking time like a metronome for tension. Lieutenant Sanders lay pale beneath crisp white sheets, an oxygen line trailing from his nose. The room smelled faintly of antiseptic and adrenaline, the scent of survival. Aaron Wallace stood at his bedside, arms folded, watching the rise and fall of his chest. His pulse was steady now, his breathing even. But the way he'd looked at her, the way he'd spoken her call sign haunted her more than any battlefield ever had. From the doorway, Dr. Hartman's voice cut through the silence. He asked for you again. Aaron didn't move. He shouldn't be talking yet. He's lucid and he knows who you are. Hartman stepped closer. Care to explain why a Marine officer from an active operations unit knows a nurse from Chicago? Her gaze remained fixed on the monitor. He doesn't know me. Not anymore. Hartman frowned. He called you Ghost. I checked the DoD database. He hesitated. That name's connected to a Navy SEAL medical division. Black file. No access without Pentagon clearance. Aaron turned sharply. Then stop looking, Doctor, for your own good. Before he could reply, the intercom crackled. Dr. Hartman, Nurse Wallace, report to ICU room 3 immediately. They hurried down the corridor. Another patient, a civilian man, was coding. Paramedics shouted, vitals, sweat, and chaos filling the space. BPs crashing. Airways compromised. Pneumothorax. Hartman lunged for the tray. Get me a 14 gauge. Aaron was already there, moving with a precision that made everyone else seem slow. Her hands were calm, surgical, unflinching. In one smooth motion, she found the intercostal space and decompressed the lung. The man gasped, air flooding back into his chest. The monitor stabilized. The chaos melted into stunned silence. One of the residents whispered,